Hi everyone, I am Dr. Wagner-Romero. I'm your professor for EDS-206, Multicultural Education here at UW-La Crosse for J-Term or Winter Term 2024. So I wanted to make this quick video to give you some additional information, to clarify some things. I've gotten some questions over email, and just to give you some additional context now that you have finished week one or are in the process of finishing week one of this really intensive week 3 course. So let's just dive right in. I'm going to try to keep this as brief as possible, but I'm also trying to give y'all as much information as I can, so that you feel confident going into the weekend, going into week 2, and also going into the final week. So before I get started, I want to talk a little bit about the importance of this course. So I think a lot of students come into EDS 206 thinking that we're going to talk about diverse groups of people and sort of navigating what it's like to work with diverse groups of people. And I like to talk about that misconception around this time in the semester and the term, just because we do engage in some nitty-gritty topics that are really important, right? Very prevalent, especially in today's times. We are talking about issues of race and ethnicity and gender and sexuality. So a lot of issues that maybe make us feel a little bit icky and uncomfortable to talk about. So one of the things I did want to mention before I get into talking about course content and instructions for papers and things that you'll be writing is when you're engaging in these topics, I want you all to really dig deep into the content, push your thinking, and push the thinking of colleagues too. The work is really important, right? Because we're going to be engaging, many of you are going to be engaging in work that has to do with working with young people, and whether or not that work is going to be locally in Wisconsin or not, I always like to tell students, you never really know where the world is going to take you. And so as a professor here at UWL, I really want to make sure that you are so profoundly prepared to engage in any context in this beautifully diverse world that we are living in. And so part of the work that we do in EDS 206 is think about diversity through a very critical lens, thinking about the way that racism impacts education, the way that homophobia impacts education, transphobia, gender inequality, the way that ageism and things like that impact education. So we're really thinking about this from a very critical lens, using a sociological perspective in a lot of these cases. So really push your thinking. And the other thing that makes it a little bit difficult when we're engaging in an online asynchronous experience is we don't get the opportunity to really get to know each other. And one of the things that I love to do with my students in person is we spend about 2 or 3 weeks really building a strong classroom culture, really building strong connections in the classroom, which makes it easier for us to talk about these complex issues, right? That make us a little bit uncomfortable. But with that said, I do want to make sure that when we're thinking about these critical topics and when we're navigating these very complicated case studies and issues that you'll be reading about and listening to, I want us to think about this through a lens of awareness, right? And building awareness and understanding the complexities that other people who are different than ourselves go through. And I think that lens is going to be really helpful as we navigate this class. And then if you're an education major, as we navigate EDS 309, which is Global Perspectives, which is going to deepen our understanding even more about the critical global world that we're living in. And so I want you all to think about that. And then the other thing that I share in person with students around this time, because we've built a really strong connection, and again, unfortunately, it's a little harder to do when we are not in person. But the other thing that that I like to share is, EDS 206 is really, again, about building awareness, right? so that we have an understanding of the challenges that humans, right, in our society face. To that end, it's never about cultivating guilt. And so I want to share that because I think that's really important, because we talk about issues related to privilege, whether that be white privilege or any other type of privilege. We talk about issues related to intersectionality, which I'm looking forward to you all or to reading your responses around intersectionality, because that's such a hot topic today, especially as we're entering political season, campaigning season, and there's so many incorrect definitions and meanings being thrown around, especially on social media. And you all, I am not an older professor. I feel like I'm still of the generation that grew up with social media. So we are of the social media generation, and I am constantly on TikTok and Instagram or X or Twitter, and I'm listening to how just like incorrect so many meanings and definitions are to a lot of the issues that we talk about in this class. So I want to make sure that I clarify a lot of those things for you. So please ask questions, but definitely not about cultivating any sense of guilt, but let's have open dialogue around just how the world is operating and how this impacts classrooms and schools, and ultimately the lives of children, right? And so if you're not an education major, I challenge you to think about this through the perspective of the work that, in the context that you will be engaging in. And so anywhere where you see the word education, maybe replace that with hospital if you're going to be a doctor, or with business if you're going to be a business owner, if you're studying business, or whatever the case is, to make it more applicable to you, because I think that could be really, really powerful. So keep that in mind. So I wanted to share that before I dig into actual content. So I have some notes here, so I'm going to be going back and forth. So I wanted to talk about the importance of this course, especially now that you've dug into some content and you've responded to some reflection questions already on your discussion boards. All right, the other thing I wanted to share, so welcome, importance of course. Third thing, importance of flexibility. So I went ahead and opened up all of the modules for the rest of the term. So I talked to many of you over the last today and yesterday, and you know, when I teach J-term, I go into it realizing that many of you are on vacation or you are working, and I'm always so grateful to work here at UWL, because this institution is made up with brilliant young people like yourselves that come from working families, and that is what keeps me so grounded in this work. So thank you all for all that you do. So with that said, I want to be as flexible as I can be over the next few weeks as we continue engaging with each other. So I just went ahead, opened up those modules. You access them as you need ahead of time. You go ahead, work on your assignments as you need them to. So one of the things I do want to highlight, though, is because of university policy, there still need to be weekly due dates. So you do have your weekly discussion board due dates, which I'll talk about in just a moment when I talk about major assignments. So keep that in mind. So flexibility in terms of all modules being open, you can work ahead of time, but you still have to adhere to due dates with those discussion board tasks. So we'll talk about that in just a second. Okay, the other thing, textbooks. You have two textbooks, right? You have Readings for Diversity and Social Justice, which is this big, thick book. There are a few readings that we'll do out of this. This is, I think, a bit more important. This is called Case Studies for Diversity and Social Justice. It's the second edition by Paul Gorski. You have three mini assignments that you're going to do out of this book. So please be sure that you access these. If you haven't, my recommendation is that you contact the UWL bookstore to get these shipped to you. You already have paid for these books through your tuition, so you have these. It's just a matter of you accessing them. Okay, next, 4 major assignments for this class. Discussion board tasks is the first set of major assignments. I'm going to talk about those in a minute. The second set of major assignments are 3 case studies that you're going to have to do. Talk about that in a second. Third major assignment is your Act 31 paper. And then the fourth one is your final reflection paper. There is a tab under the Start Here module in Canvas called Important Documents for EDS-206, and in parentheses it says with instructions for papers or something like that. So under the Start Here module in Canvas, there is a tab that says Important Documents. Go there. In that tab, once you click it, you will have the instructions for your case studies, Act 31 paper, and final reflection paper. Read those as soon as possible. I'm going to send out separate instructions or separate videos with instructions for the Act 31 paper and the final reflection paper, because I don't want to make this video a 30-minute video, so I'm not going to go through that in depth today, but please read those carefully over this weekend, and then on Monday, I'll tackle that again. So 4 major assignments: discussion boards, case studies, Act 31 paper, final reflection. All right, to that end, discussion board assignments. So discussion board assignments for modules 1 through 4 were due this week. Initial responses to your discussion board tasks are due today, Friday, January 5th. Your peer responses, 2 peer responses per module, are due tomorrow, Saturday, by 11:59 p.m. Modules 5 through 8, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are due next week, the week of January 8th. So all initial responses, so all of your responses to each module are due by that Friday. And then your peer responses are due by that Saturday. Then modules 9, 10, 11, and 12 are due the week of January 15th. So modules 9 through 12 are due the week of January 15th. The only difference in the third week from modules 9 through 12 is that your discussion board responses are going to be due on Thursday and Friday instead of Friday and Saturday. So modules 9 through 12 discussion board responses are going to be due Thursday and Friday instead of Friday and Saturday because of Friday being the last day of class. Now, your responses for your initial posts, so your initial post for your responses to the discussion board prompt, just to clarify, so I had assistance from a TA transferring over some content from last winter term to now, and there were a bit of inconsistencies, so I apologize to you all about that. And you will not be deducted any points if for some reason there were inconsistencies in your word count. Don't worry about that. I extend as much grace to my students, so don't stress out about that. So with that said, responses should be no fewer than 150 words each for initial responses to questions, and then each peer response should be no fewer than 75 words. And then as a reminder, there may be more than one discussion board prompt in some modules, so keep that in mind when you are trying to plan out your sort of calendar for the week. All right, so that was the information on discussion board assignments. I hope that was helpful. The next thing I want to talk about are case studies. You have 3 case studies to do. Again, go to that tab under the Start Here module in Canvas, read the instructions for the case studies. They are very, 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 very clear. I outlined which case studies you can do for case study 1, which case study you can do for your second case study assignment, and which ones you can do for your third case study assignment. And I tell you exactly what you need to do. I promise they are very clear, so don't stress out about it. I also mentioned in there, those are very low stakes assignments because I'm more interested in process over product with a lot of your work, because I care more about how your thinking is going rather than like a perfect paper. And I think that's what college classes should really be about. So I want to know how you're growing and how you're thinking and how you're navigating the course. So please read the instructions for the case studies. You have 3 of them to do. Now, there's a lot of flexibility on when you can submit your case studies. You can submit all 3 of them by January 19th. However, my biggest recommendation is that you submit them sporadically over the next 2 weeks so that you're not writing 3 at the end of the final week, on top of trying to write an Act 31 paper and a final course reflection. So manage your time. Y'all are college students, you're adults, manage your time accordingly. Don't do 3 case studies at the end of the final week. Sort of calendar yourself out so that you are spacing them out in a way that is manageable for you. So just know the folders for all the case studies are open until the 19th. You have from today until the 19th to submit 3 of them. The third assignment you have is the Act 31 paper, and that is Module 7 in Canvas. You have all of the resources in Module 7. You have the instructions in Module 7. The instructions are also in the Start Here tab under Important Documents, so you can read the instructions for the Act 31 paper there. I'll also send another video sort of outlining the expectations. That paper is going to be due on Wednesday, January 17th. It is one of the few, or it is the only of the 3 major assignments besides discussion boards that is not due on Friday the 19th. It is due on Wednesday, January 17th. Mark that in your calendars. It is marked as that due date in Canvas, so it's going to remind you. Act 31, paper is due on Wednesday, January 17th. But that is to make sure that there's enough time between Wednesday and Friday to be able to grade all these things too. And then finally, your final course reflection will be due on Friday, January 19th. All of these things by 11:59 p.m. So I wanted to send this video just to give you some clarifying information, to welcome you again. I wish I could see you in person, but I know you're enjoying some beautiful time with your families, your friends, this winter. And if you're working, make that money so you can come back to campus and have a beautiful spring semester. I hope to see you all in person. If you need anything, please email me, jwagner-romero@uwlax.edu. I am here to support you. I always tell my students in person, again, this is so much easier in person, so much easier to be an ushy mushy human in person. But I'm here to support you. I'm here to catapult y'all. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you need absolutely anything. Take care and have a beautiful weekend.